Hello, everyone, and welcome to Answer the Call. On this week's episode, we're talking about crafting. Some people are saying it's too early, don't talk about this. Well, you know what? That's kind of the theme of this show, is we talk about things that are a little bit farther off. We get into like some heated or deep discussions about how we think things should be. That's the whole point of this show, is to talk about a single topic, whether it's close to coming into fruition or far away, and discuss it amongst ourselves, the Star Citizen community, and that's it. And today we're going to talk about crafting. Now, the last relevant post to crafting was this one. I'm actually going to bring it up on the screen here. It's going to take me a moment to do so. And this is your economy post from, let's scroll up here and see when this thing was actually posted. July 5th, 2013. This is the most relevant post to crafting in Star Citizen. And it kind of points out that you're going to be able to own certain nodes. Nodes are things that craft certain materials. They require certain things like water, food, building materials, workers, entertainment. All these things are part of the production chain. And this post is really cool. I'll link it in the description for you guys after the show. But the point of this discussion is this is sort of outdated. So when this post was made, we didn't have these huge thing where these companies were a massive thing, right? There's lore behind all these companies. There's landing zones dedicated to these companies, right? Hurston is a big example. The business district, these giant gold statues of these people, right? From Hurston Dynamics. And traditional craft, we have to define crafting, and I'm going to go more of the traditional player-run economy crafting in Star Citizen. And the kind of main question is, do we sort of need this? And that is, take certain raw materials, turn them into something useful, turn that something useful into something more useful, maybe combining useful things into more useful things, and so on and so forth, right? This does exist in Star Citizen. You can mine something, refine it into whatever they want to call it, a more refined ore that can be used for crafting items. But the only thing that we know about this is really from Tony Z's talks about quantum and all these things. And it feels like how the crafting mechanic works in Star Citizen is it's less hands-on than these traditional games, where you'll kind of be ferrying things back and forth and possibly have crafting similar to Eve, where I'd never played Eve before, so I'm kind of just listening to Twitch chat, where Eve is telling me that you can bring raw materials to a NPC run factory, pay them for their services, and get a finished product in return. In Star Citizen, that doesn't quite work. Apparently, you can also do it in your own owned factories as well in Eve. Now, in Star Citizen, that doesn't really work because of these companies, right? So in my mind, the only way that crafting can really work is building a reputation up with that company, and they allow you to purchase a franchise. And maybe you can build a factory on a planet that doesn't have, let's say, a Hurston Dynamics weapons factory. And you can build that on, let's just use Pyro as an example, even though it's like an unlawful system, and you would probably run into a lot of problems there. But let's use that as an example, and then you can build your own supply line and supply chain for that factory there. That's the only thing that I think could work, is franchising. Now, why do I feel that this is necessary? In the current state that Star Citizen's in, it's very difficult to tell what the endgame will be like, what this MMO will be like. It can't be all just little interactions amongst players with VoIP, right? There has to be needs and wants and fighting over resources. And why would you fight over certain resources if you weren't crafting things? Right? If it wasn't a necessity, why would you be crafting? And why would you be fighting over things if there wasn't a necessity for these items? So that's kind of why I feel like crafting needs to be there. But I've talked long enough. I'd want to hear more from you guys and what you think. And there's some people in Twitch chat that are being kind of obnoxious. If you want to come on the show and talk to me, face to face, you are more than welcome to. So this goes for everyone out there listening on YouTube as well. You can come on the show, join the Discord, and have a chat. I am more than welcome with having like a civil chat when we're talking. Voice to voice is a lot easier. It's very hard to hear people's tone of voice in Twitch chat, so I tend to get more aggressive than I should be towards them. So now, and them towards me. Let's go ahead and bring on our first caller. Lucky, welcome. How are you? Lucky? You sound like Darth Vader right now.
Yeah, that was just the thing.
Oh, okay.
So I agree.
I thought your mic was broken, but you didn't come through very well.
Yeah. Sorry.
It's all right.
So I agree. I definitely think we should have some sort of player interactive crafting, but I don't think it should be so simple as being able to craft it on yourself, right? So we need like crafting stations or something. Maybe we could have so many per ship, or eventually have so many like per building that we are allowed to build, or like the Pioneer, or however that's going to go down. But I do agree with like the franchise. Maybe like if I have one crafting station in my ship or on a planet inside of a building that the Pioneer creates, like it could produce 1 or 10, and then if you get a franchise, you can go to like 100 or 1,000. Huge production, something like that.
I mean, the one thing that I didn't say at the beginning is the reason I bought Star Citizen was because of that original post. I bought Star Citizen back then after watching that video and reading that post. The idea of becoming an industry giant was why I bought into this game. And there's really been little discussion from the point of that post until now. And it's hard to tell based off of everything that we're seeing that will be a reality. Like even crafting something on a crafting bench on your ship.
Yeah.
No discussion of it at all. The only things that we can see in game that seem like any sort of crafting situation that we can take part in is like the mining outposts on moons. You see them digging into the ground, and then you can see that you can buy material from them.
Right, and I'm hoping at some point that we would be able to have those little farm, containers that you see there, and then the mining nodes that you were speaking of. And possibly, I'm sure there's something else they could eventually think of to, set around an outpost once we are able to do so. But I mean, it's like, I don't want the crafting to be simple, as like crafting a bandage. I mean, that would be okay, I guess. But, we have the not the EpiPens, but the,
Medipens.
Yeah, the pins. Yeah. And, but I don't want to be too advanced. Like, I don't know if you've played Space Engineers lately, but it's getting really in depth, and it's like I haven't played in forever, and last time I did play, I was like, wow, I'm totally lost.
Yeah.
But I feel like CIG isn't really. I mean, they are laying out the roadmap. They're putting stuff on, taking stuff off, but it's like they're not giving us like a future projection of like, this is our plan. I don't know when it's going to go on the roadmap. I don't know when it's going to happen, but it's like, you don't know what to expect with the way they do it.
And they don't want to share their plans with us anymore, because the second they do, somebody goes up in arms and makes a Reddit thread, and they can't help themselves but continue to read those things and get worked up based off of what we say, instead of just making the game that they want to make. Right. They get very focused on our feedback, which is one of the negative parts of open development, but which is also one of the fun parts, because we get to do things like this and just have discussions about it. But yeah, go ahead.
I think maybe like if you were able to craft a weapon, make it to where it's not like the best and like a low tier, something just to get you by, but you have to craft it at a crafting station or something like that. And if you want to get better tier stuff, maybe invest into like a starter kit from a certain franchise, and it gives you like a better, I don't know, a bullet size or something that it does better than the just their starting kit that you can pick up from maybe like a Dumper's Depot or something. Just a little better tier item rather than like the starter tier or something. Yeah. I don't know. I'm just kind of.
Doesn't it feel weird?
My thing.
Me too. But doesn't it feel weird? Like, this is why I decided to have this show, is think about like what you just said. Oh, I'll be able to just craft a weapon. Like, doesn't it seem like you're not going to be able to?
It kind of does, because they want to sell everything at these little stores, and that's fine, if you need to. But what if you're, pinned down somewhere and you have a crafting station, if they have that, and you have the materials, say, of little boxes, that we carry around, little cargo boxes. Say it's got everything in it you need, and right there's the crafting station. You can go craft your little pistol or something, just to, at least, give one last hurrah before you die if you're being surrounded.
We have 3D printing in 2020.
Right.
It's not unrealistic that that's not possible in, 3020, basically, where the all you would need is the blueprint. But in order, the whole thing is I think, and maybe you'll agree with me, is that day 1 or day 2 or week 2, you necessarily shouldn't be able to even craft your pistol. You should have to buy that from the company. But when you've built up the reputation with these certain companies, however that may work, I have no idea. Then maybe, like, the idea that I have is to this franchise thing, and they'll give you a blueprint and you can be a franchise that creates these weapons. In no way do I feel like it should be the way you're describing it, where you're doing it at a small scale. If you're crafting anything, it should only be on like an industry scale instead of that's just my opinion on it, is that it should be like factory scale instead of, oh, I died, let me craft my suit and my armor again and go back out and fight. That just seems weird. It just doesn't seem right. Is that fair?
Okay, let me ask you a question.
Okay.
Saying that's fine. Yeah, I totally think that's a fine way to do it. However, we'll have these huge cargo boxes, right? Will all these weapons and armor and everything be inside those, and we'll be able to act? Sure,
why not? Like, you can... Yeah, I see what you're saying, which makes my like point pretty flawed, is the idea of having stocking up on weapons and armor. That's what you're implying, right?
Well, I mean, like, if you were able to create one, and you say you had to invest in a franchise, which, yeah, I totally think's fine. Either way, but you make, say, 100 of one item rather than just one item. Will you still be able to pull that one item out of that crate?
Of course, yeah.
And I lost the train of thought. What I was getting ready to say. Let me see.
We're talking about like the scale, right? That small scale versus industry scale.
So, basically, like I was saying, like if you were able to create a pistol with the materials you had from, say, smaller boxes, would you necessarily have to buy those smaller cargo boxes from the franchises? We do trading stuff now from, port to port and stuff.
I don't know. It's a good question, because that's where, again, that's why we're having this conversation, because there's so much that is hard to imagine with the current way the game seems to be building itself now. I think what you're asking is, should I only be able to build one at a time? And if I can't, then do I have to buy them in bulk from the company? Is that what you're asking?
Well, I mean, say like how you can go to Lowe's or Home Depot here in the U.S. and you buy like in bulk, you get cheap. You buy it for cheaper essentially. Yeah. So if you had the raw materials or the materials that were refined, and you were able to make like a tier 1 weapon, just because it would take longer, like it wouldn't just be like instant, it'd take like an hour, 10 hours, something just to make the game pursue worth playing, right? So if you made stuff instantly, it would not be fun, right?
Agreed.
Because you're going to be, everything's instant, I mean, I think, jumping from the ground to an outpost, or not an outpost, but a orbital marker is kind of but I mean, I like the idea of being able to have to fly through atmosphere to jump to the orbital marker. That's fine, but instant gratification is what a lot of people are looking after, and I don't think that's something that would be in this game.
I agree. Like, no matter what, if it was going to craft even a pistol, it should take a few minutes, right? Some time.
Yeah.
And the blueprint in order to do that should be quite difficult to earn as well, and then go from there. I just keep going back to this. It just doesn't seem Star Citizen, but maybe it's because we don't know what Star Citizen is yet. To die, wake up, craft your armor, your weapon, and go back into the fight. It just doesn't feel right, but I don't know what the solution to make it feel right is.
Well, we'll have the weapon racks and stuff too, so I mean that's something to think about. If you were to die and you have already previously crafted a weapon to store there, I mean, because you have it, you're ready to go. If you don't, then you got to wait, say 5-10 minutes.
Yeah, and some people in Twitch chat, I usually don't respond to anybody in Twitch chat once the show starts, but like people are saying, please don't let this game turn into a grinding survival crafting game. Like the whole point of the game is that it wouldn't be required that you do that, right? It would only be required for people that want to. Like there should be all sorts of ways to gain wealth, to win in Star Citizen. And I'm sorry, but this post goes back to 2013. This was always a plan, right? So I'm not this conversation isn't turning this game into anything that it was never planned to be. This was always planned to be a thing. It's just a discussion of how to make it not this grindy, awful survival game at the same time as being fun. But this was always a plan, so keep that in mind when having this discussion. But yeah, I don't know. It's what I'm excited to do. It's what I've always wanted to do, is own the factory, own most of the supply chain. Think about big orgs, right, Lucky? What's a big org gonna do? Endgame. Let's just talk about Endgame and Star Citizen real quick before we go on to the next caller, because I think we're pretty packed today. What does it look like for you without crafting? It almost seems like it's a necessity.
Yeah, lots of trading and lots of mining as of right now. We're pushing 100 in my org, and that's kind of where the cap's going to be. But I don't think that's going to be exciting, for very long. And I don't
just
think
moving stuff back and forth is not exciting.
Yeah. And also I think like maybe while some people, like you were saying in the chat, was talking about grinding. What if you were to start something, because it takes an hour or two to create, you do something else while that happens, and then when you get back, you're done.
Yeah, sure. But the idea is that it feels like a necessity in order for this game to have some longevity, to be more in touch with it, right? Raw materials, fighting over those resource nodes, and then using that to profit in the game, whether you're selling it to NPCs or other players. Like, what sort of wares do we sell on the Banu Merchantman and this the
spatulas, lots of spatulas,
right? Like, if we're not crafting, what do we do?
I guess fight.
Yeah, but what do you fight over?
Vandal.
Or raw materials, and why do you fight over them? It goes right back to crafting, right? It has to.
Yeah, there's going to be some sort of crafting coming.
Yeah, it has to. There's no way that it's not. It's just a matter of how they're going to do it, and we can all discuss how we want to. I like the things that you're saying, having things on your ship. Like, let's use, I don't know, have you seen the Carrick the last couple days?
I've seen bits and parts of it, yes.
Okay. Pretty big ship, right? But as far as crafting goes, there's no room for it anywhere in there. But the one thing that you do see is the little repair station for components, right?
Right.
So would you say that that's like the biggest size thing that you would be crafting maybe in a ship of that size? Maybe some shields?
Yeah, I would think so. I mean, but what if the crafting station was portable, all right? And you could move it from ship to ship, and it wouldn't necessarily stay like maybe in the cargo hold or something, just for instance, and it would reduce your SCU over a period of time if you.
That is cool, but it's not very Star Citizen, right? Where everything's very specialized.
Well, I mean, you can remove the crafting table from the cargo hold, and you would retain your SCU. But
that's
it's just
fine.
like you have to.
but it's not very Star Citizen of you to say that, right? Where the most ships are specialized. So if they were going to do anything, it would probably be some sort of crafting ship, right? Like the Endeavor was mentioned earlier with farming, and obviously the Endeavor also has that the overclocking stuff.
Maybe it would be like a tier 1, like low tier, and it wouldn't be like awesome.
Okay. Yeah. And it would be smaller scale stuff, maybe like armor, weapons.
Right. Very cheap,
more FPS-y.
Just something to help you, not like to make you badass, but just to hold,
Yeah. Okay. That's fair. Is there anything else you want to say before we let you go, Lucky?
Nah, man, long time viewer, first time caller, and I watch pop in every once in a while, and when I can, because I usually work through the week, and you're usually on in the morning, so it kind of hinders my ability to watch. But,
yeah, I understand.
I like the way everything's going. So
thanks, man.
Maybe till.
Yeah, man, for sure. Do you want to plug your org at all?
Galactic Enterprises Incorporated.
There you go. Nice. Maybe we'll work together one day.
I hope so. We're in industrial, so
yeah, man. Definitely. All right. Talk to you soon.
Later, man.
Bye, Lucky. All right, our next caller is Groth, and I, as always, am not prepared. So, Groth, how are you? I got to put your name up on the screen here.
Hi, Mike. I'm good.
So, what's your thought process on this? Are we in agreement, disagreement? Somewhat agree.
Sort of agree. I would say more like several points. I mean, I was like, I mean, even before Star Citizen, I always wanted a game that was more like ADX games, but in a multiplayer scenario. So on that industrial side, but I would rather at the moment talk about more smaller crafting than the industrial stuff. So
okay.
Yeah. I think like even if we considered like, okay, the Pioneers crafting Endeavor might have some stuff, but even if we don't consider like refining stuff like with our Orion, or if there are some farming vehicles, that crafting, even though
I definitely consider that. I definitely consider that crafting, but in traditional games, that's like step one of crafting, and then you usually would take that after refining and turn it into something highly useful in the game. And the current state of the way they're discussing Star Citizen is we may be part of that point of crafting, but after that, is there a wall that stops where all we do is deliver that item to these companies, and then from there they produce goods and we can choose to buy them or not? Like that's where there's a wall that I don't know if we're allowed to go past or not.
I think there should be at least bumps, but I get to it a bit later.
Okay.
I think like if we put in some survivalish crafting, like really for survival, like,
and there's going
after
to be
crashing on a planet or so, I would do just the basis, like not doing like could craft anything that contains electronics, for example, or anything that contains like mechanical, like heavy mechanical stuff, and not above a certain weight category. Just, for example, just
like a fire?
Create some spare ammo, then some food, of course, that should be in it. Very low grade med supplies, like we have the pens, but the last caller also talked about bandages. I think because I think outposts and are also a thing, and they will be probably under siege by other orcs or NPCs. I think having the opportunity to craft some bullets, not in a huge automation chain, but basically having some self-sufficiency. Same with food, same with low-grade medical supplies, and always, I think, mostly for that tier of crafting, it should always be like very low-grade stuff, like bandages and stuff, like where you then have basically if the medical profession will get some bigger mechanics where people have to use now the good stuff or the bad stuff, basically, when your base is under siege, or basically run out of the good stuff and then you're done.
Now, can I stop you there for a moment? You started the scenario out with like crash landing on a planet or a moon.
Yeah, the same as like for crash landing, I would do something more like a minimal survival shelter, like some Bear Grylls stuff, basically.
Sure, but how would that work with Star Citizen, right? Is this taking it too far? And then at the same time, every animation needs to look nice and perfect, and all this
thing is always a problem.
And every other survival game, you literally move your hands like this, and no matter what you do, you move your hands like this, and you've all of a sudden crafted a gun, or you move your hands like this, now you have a tent, and it's that stuff just doesn't work.
Yeah, especially the more complex it gets, the more problematic it gets. So I would want it at that level to be very low in quality, and same like for the Outpost stuff. That is also like stuff you could craft on your own, or like with a table, like with the press and so on. You have to for manual ammo refill. You guys in the US do, stuff like that. Where there are no power tools involved, or stuff like that, or bigger mechanical things.
Yeah.
Even the weapon Lucky talked about, I would not include there. I would include it like if you would have like a CNC machine where you can then come back after a few minutes and have a part of it and then manually assemble it, maybe with, I don't know if we need a mini game for that, but then manually assemble the parts you have created in that CNC machine out of the basically refined like metal ingots you got from your refinery or you got on your ship as cargo. I think that is the maximum there, and then maybe craft a simple shotgun or so, and nothing that compares, no laser weapons and no highly precision semi-automatic weapons, or nothing that is complex. So the industry, like the bigger industry, maybe player driven, and the NPC industry has always the edge on that. But back to the animations, I mean, we will already have a problem, like if we do a campfire. Do we have then place like 20 stones in a circle or so for perfect animation?
It would be so ridiculous.
I think even there, I think Star Citizen comes to a limit, and then we have to basically decrease fidelity in a few regions.
I agree.
And have at least have a survival shelter, like in what's that game with the convicts? The last survival game with those convicts. Something with S.
Scum.
Scum, yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe like that. But yeah, for bigger stuff, I think automation, like on a workbench, like if you craft like one thing, like mill one thing with a CNC machine that is on your base or on your ship, I think okay. But I think no automation. Maybe automation that you craft 10 bullets in a row instead of one, and it is not too tedious, because Star Citizen should work on how much time everything takes. But then step it up, and then maybe have some bigger machines on bases. I don't think like that a real purpose-built crafting ship, other than the Pioneer for crafting bases, is a really good idea. I think that should be something ground-based on that tier. And after that, franchising, maybe have a factory or space station or so at the super max tier, where you need a lot of reputation, law bidding status, and stuff like that.
Yeah, and you're obviously fighting over that location, material, all those things, because
but then that's
very important for late game.
Not basically crafting anymore, but just managing, like in X games with your factory, I have this input sources. I want them at minimum of this price. Not minimum, but if I buy them, maximum at this price. If I sell them, minimum at that price. Is there a reserve quantity and stuff like that? Or maybe purchase restrictions for do this faction can purchase it. But I think that's more than industrial gameplay, not crafting anymore. But I hope then that crafting is really something where they don't go too bonkers. No, that you can really craft like in those survival games, like electronics and very fine mechanics, just with your bare hands or just with some
a multi-tool or something.
Yeah.
That's fair. I agree with that. Is there anything else you want to add before I let you go, Gruff?
Not really. I just think that self-sufficiency to some extent is needed, but it should not get out of their hands.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, Gruff. Thank you, man. Appreciate it. Talk to you soon. All right, our next caller is Massocast. Masso, what's up, buddy?
Hey, man.
How's it going?
Not too much. Got up early again just to get in here
to play Eco with us.
Oh yeah, well, I haven't hopped in that game for a while, man. That game consumes my life. I had to take a step back.
We all did. I mean, I think that's sort of where the crafting conversation came from. Was how in depth and everything that game is.
Yeah, I can tell because honestly, a lot. I'm just gonna jump right in here if you don't mind.
Go.
A lot of these comments and contributors so far have been way like obviously influenced by things like games like Eco and
other games,
and Minecraft. And frankly, I think I'm just gonna go right out and say, like, I think you guys are smoking something. Like, it's you mentioned you mentioned that we don't really know what Star Citizen feels like as a game, but I'd argue that it's pretty clear, just from listening to Chris talk, that everything he wants to be very tactile. That's a key word there.
Yes.
And crafting stations and self-sufficiency, even like crafting quote unquote a simple shotgun and stuff like that, that is not tactile. None of that is tactile because the only way to do it, like you said, is to wave your hands in a specific manner and watch a taskbar go across the screen until, ta-da, look at your shotgun is built, which is not Star Citizen.
It's not.
At all. And I get it. Okay, sure. There are such things as 3D printers and things like that. But I still don't think that any sort of progress bar based hand wavium small scale crafting is in any way going to make it into this game. I think that the only quote crafting we're going to see is I think it was Groth who made the distinction between industry and crafting, and I think the only quote unquote crafting we are going to see is on that industrial scale. I don't think there'll be any sort of crafting stations in ships or anything like that because the way Star Citizen would end up having to work like that would be I mean
ridiculous.
Ridiculous, yeah. Yes. Like it would be if it's
because of the animation
style, it would be ridiculous, yeah. But it would also be like, can you imagine the recipes, quote unquote, for those crafting things? It would be like, oh, craft the hammer, craft for the shotgun, craft the chamber, craft the barrels. Like that's the granularity that Star Citizen kind of wants to run at, and that's why I do not think that they will incorporate something like that into Star Citizen.
Okay, well, let me stop you there then, because I think they are going to, and they've already kind of discussed it a little bit, and I want to get your opinion on this, is we have harvestables in the game, right? Yeah. And you can find those harvestables. What can you do with them currently? You can only sell them back, and they're not worth even your time trying to find them. But what's the actual purpose of them? And this has been discussed by Dan Truffin, and I think maybe Todd Pappy as well, that you will take those harvestables and research them and science them into cures for certain issues and maybe medicine and food. And so there is small scale crafting, but I think you mean more of the crafting. Yeah, crafting the gun that you had that you actually purchased from a store.
See that, and what you've described to me, that's not crafting to me. That's
crafting to me.
That would be like science gameplay, in my opinion. And how they do that, I mean, is anybody's guess at this point, because that is a long way off. But
Okay.
Like specifically, I think what we'll see is more of the industrial side of things. And I honestly, I do see a lot of ways in which, it could still be relatively small scale. For example, I don't think it'll even need to be franchises necessarily. I think you will be able to build bases. That's pretty clear with the Pioneer, and I think those bases will have various buildings that that probably will serve some sort of crafting role. Insofar as you'd have a mine, potentially a refinery, potentially a manufactory of some sort, and I do think that you'll be able to produce. If you have a big enough supply chain, you will be able to produce actual items and components. But like you've mentioned, these companies that are already doing this in Star Citizen are massive conglomerates, and I think basically your own supply chains, or your organization's supply chains, let's be honest here, are going to end up having to be like massive before you're actually able to produce a usable item. So I think initial manufacturing would be mining and refining. That's something that would be relatively simple for a base builder like a Pioneer and a small org to set up.
Very realistic to see in Star Citizen. I mean, it's been on the roadmap.
Yeah. And you see it, frankly, you see them all over the moons, the little mining outposts and stuff like that. That's your first step. But in order to produce let's say a shield generator, that you need the mining and refining, you need the initial components being crafted, and then you need the potentially tertiary components being crafted, and then you need a manufacturer to actually craft the shield generator itself. That's the chain, the length of the chain I could see.
And do they just give it to you?
I'm not really sure how they'll handle that, but I imagine they would. I mean, and this is, and before anybody starts, kind of commenting on how this would ruin the economy. I mean, again, let's refer back to the beginning of this. Yeah, exactly. Like these Crusader and Hurston and all these big companies out there would just, they're going to be outputting these components on scales that make your, paltry little contributions irrelevant. But where I could see it becoming, where I could see that kind of crafting becoming relevant in the universe would be like specialized high performance parts or something like that.
Okay.
But anyways, I'm kind of digressing at this point. That to me seems to be what they've indicated.
I don't think you're digressing at all.
Well, down the chain of like the potential economic impacts of it and stuff like that. I suppose it's a little bit off topic.
But what about the idea of, we know that there's subcomponents inside of these components.
Precisely.
What if you couldn't craft the actual component, but you could craft subcomponents that I don't know, maybe there's ways to gain recipes through doing missions, and certain engineers out there require some help from you. In return, they gave you a little bit of money and this recipe for this really high power thing that you can put inside your shields.
Yeah, but again, I mean, why? I don't understand why you wouldn't be allowed to craft the actual component. I mean, ultimately, if the amount of
because I can't craft Coca-Cola today. I can't craft a car.
Sure, but that's not what I'm saying. The only way that you'd be able to craft the actual component, as I like kind of outlined there, would be an incredibly deep and long supply chain.
Yeah,
I think you'll be able to do it. It'll just be like the amount of resources in to run all the factories and stuff like that up until the point where you're actually producing an item will be pretty large.
But what item would you be producing? The only thing that I'm not understanding from you is
finished products.
Well,
actual usable components.
Sure, but a finished product is an RSI shield, a right? It won't be an unnamed thing. So how do you gain?
Oh, I see what you mean.
Yes. So how do you gain access to allow to do the RSI shield versus this shield versus that? That's the problem, is that these companies exist and you're stealing their property then, right? That's their IP.
Now that I think about it, the none of the components in game right now seem to act. I don't see any branding on them.
There's branding and there's style.
The name.
No. There is branding and there is style. Look at shields. Look at power plants. They're all are branded, and it is very specific that this type of shield is from this company. It is very obvious nowadays. It may have just been an oversight that you didn't see, but that's the big disconnect where these endgame components. That's why, again, we're having this discussion. Is things have changed. Does the old way make sense? This industry thing, it may, but it requires some sort of.
It does, yeah, and that's interesting. I didn't
interaction with those companies somehow to allow you to do it.
Maybe, yeah. I didn't actually consider the IP thing. So potentially. I mean, at the same time, I don't think it would be out of the question to allow player proprietary or individual or even limited run kind of like products, but I suppose it would be kind of an IP violation if you were producing precisely this shield generator. I guess but I feel like that would be fairly easy to get around, like you said, or like one of the ways you said it was, you'd have a design be a reward from a particular quest giver, so that works. But ultimately, I think the core of it is that. I don't think crafting will be individual. I don't think that's Star Citizen style. And from what I've seen over the years of dev videos and stuff like that, it sounds like industrial scale crafting is more what they're kind of moving towards. Though, to be fair, we haven't heard really much on this subject at all from them. Besides that they do seem to be shifting their stance, because I do remember a lot of 10 for the Chairmans back in the day where they were asking Chris about various crafting things, and he seemed to be like not interested in it at all, to be honest. But it does seem that they are just kind of little hints and statements by devs kind of recently make me think that they are potentially changing their tune a bit to that. But I think the primary reasoning behind that is just because, frankly, if you look at the Tony Z's Quanta system, it is like they have flat out crafting recipes in that system that he demonstrated. So
absolutely. It's just these companies are doing it and not us.
Yeah. And that's what I think.
Yeah, I was going to try and steer it towards, well, why is it necessary that we have these things?
Well, I think the necessity in it comes from the fact that the crafting is a relatively low dev input way to increase the depth of gameplay, which is why I think they will go into it. I mean, if you have, first of all, it's a good money sink, because as we've established, chances are any sort of finished product you're going to produce is going to involve a very long and very expensive supply chain. Yeah. So I think it's a good money sink. And two, it's something that people can sink hours into if they're so inclined. And I think, and it's, like I said, it's relatively low input from a development perspective. So I think, why wouldn't they?
No
it
matter,
just makes sense.
To me, no matter if the games can simulate its economy and keep the world running, whether we interact with it or not, isn't as important as the interactions between players. Economy is the way I can describe it. Like, no matter what, we need to be funneled into certain areas for certain reasons to interact with each other. Otherwise, this game will be awful. Awfully boring is better than awful, but it will be awfully boring if we're not interacting with other players at least sometimes, right?
Yep. And honestly, I really think that that crafting is a good way to do that.
I agree.
You know, producing super high-end components may not make economical sense for a big company like Crusader, but you know, handcrafted or quote unquote handcrafted, you know, super high output shield generators, you know, from a player's corporation may end up being, you know, something that they kind of capitalize on as a like cornering the market kind of thing. And once those kind of shield generators, for example, if it kind of gain some sort of notoriety or popularity, you know, that's going to drive players together, because one, there's going to be people who want to come buy it, or two, there's going to be people who want to steal it, or there's going to be a rival corporation that is also looking to produce high output shield generators that's going to try to sabotage, you know, that particular organization's supply chains and manufactories and stuff like that. So I mean, that's just an example off the top of my head where crafting, you know, would drive player interactions.
Agree wholeheartedly. So that's that. I mean, you and I are on the exact same page. Is that, and I like it. They keep saying we're not going to have traditional crafting, and it's like, well, if you don't, to some extent, I don't know if you have like an end game or a game really. Like, I don't really know what Star Citizen looks like, but in no way do I think can it operate without kind of the things that we discussed.
Sure. Okay, but I should specify here that I don't see the crafting system that I've just kind of that I've outlined, or that's coming out of my head here. I don't see that as being a traditional MMO crafting system, because I think
you're not one player crafting in your house on a bench. Yeah,
exactly. And it's not, it's, you know, like, frankly, I think the only way that you can actually do crafting without all the specific animations is via NPC, because if you have NPCs running your factories and things like that, you know, it can be a progress bar, you know, and you can kind of, they can get around having to have all that granularity that would be required if it were a player doing it, you know, by just having it so that if you want to have a factory, it has to be manned by, you know, by NPCs. So the game's economy, Quantum, has to run that factory, even if it is player owned. I don't think that it'll be traditional MMO or Eco or Minecraft, in that, like, you know, that manufacturing is run by players who are rubbing their hands together and watching a progress bar go. I think it'll be, so I think it'll differ from those sorts of traditional MMO crafting systems, you know, insofar as it won't be directly player crafted. It'll be NPC and specific buildings that are doing the work. I agree.
Okay, cool, man. Is there anything else you want to add before I let you go?
No, that's about it.
All right. Yeah. All right. You and I are very much on the same page. I like it a lot. All right, cool. We're gonna. All right, Matt. So have a good one. We're gonna bring in Quams next. Quams, how are you?
Hey, I'm good. How are you?
I'm well. So, what do you think about the discussion so far, crafting Star Citizen?
Actually, I'm pretty much on the page of you and the last guy.
Yeah.
To be honest, there's maybe something I can throw in. Have you ever played Star Wars: The Old Republic?
I have not, but from what I understand is every time I talk about Ultima Online, people go to that game as the space successor sort of it.
Yeah, a bit. There's a lot of problems with that game, but the crafting, in my opinion, was sort of not too bad there, because it wasn't you doing it, but it was the group and the companions you picked up during your travels who did the crafting for you, which I liked, because I spent just too much time in my life in WoW looking at my Tauren or whatever, waving his hands and hearing that sound while my inventory was filling up with something useless. And considering the fact that somebody else said as well, that we don't have skills in Star Citizen. Star Citizens, everything is haptic, so this whole concept won't work, in my opinion. So we need something like NPCs or 3D printers or something like this to produce stuff. For me, it's important that we have it. I can't see that the game making fun without any kind of crafting, to be honest.
Agreed.
This is, for me, is always part of the fun. It's always like, you collect stuff, you buy stuff, you produce something, you throw it on the market as well. Yeah. I mean, it's and it plays the whole economy up. I still remember in WoW time, one of my friends actually managed to control the wool on the server. So he has a wool monopoly basically. And I spent a lot of time in that one. And the whole fun around it, because as far as I remember, wool was, especially in Classic, was somewhere in the progression, deeply ingrained in the progression for tailoring, I guess, or something. He actually made a lot of money out of that one, and it was fun because everybody knew him at the end. Like, okay, you need wool prickly,
go talk to that
this
guy.
Yeah, and this was I really enjoyed being around something like this, and maybe Star Citizen one shot, one big won't be like this, but maybe it's a whatever an orc which sort of produces specially high quality laser scopes. So everybody knows, okay, if you want one of those, don't do it yourself. Just bring the stuff to the orc, the member of that orc, and they produce it for you. And the other thing is, when it comes to the big orcs and companies, or the big companies doing it, I don't see that much of a problem. If you look into it, not only franchising, but you can always say, okay, there are non-franchise part. There is the back shop thing. Bit like car tuning, where you have where you get the small companies doing really specialized things. So you can, for example, you can sort of build up laser scopes or quantum drive components which reduce your range, but has something other bad. Something really like there's a bit like AMG to Mercedes. Okay. So you get the QD and you do some stuff with it.
That is a really cool way of looking at it. Is like the AMG or I forgot the Toyota one. They all have their tuning crafters, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool.
And that would solve a lot of the franchise problem. But I don't see the economy being fun
with the way it is. With the way the way we see it now is just shifting stuff from one place to another, while you may be profiting and going through some thought process and profiting from it. It seems very hands off and boring and not like don't get me wrong. I love cargo hauling. I don't want to take away from cargo haulers. Will I be doing a lot of that? Absolutely. But it doesn't feel like a very Star Citizen way of doing it. It feels very hands-off.
Yep. I'm completely with you there.
Yeah.
And especially, I mean, I'm in the what for me when I came in and started looking to Star Citizen and starting supporting it, I was always intrigued by mining, cargo hauling, a bit of exploration. So the whole pew pew part, as I tend to call it, is not really my cup of tea for longer. That's it's part of the game, and I completely accept that. But I for me, it's more, again, going to a planet, maybe like or meeting up with you, for example, on another guys, and going to some really out locations in a mole, harvesting and mining for an unobtainium or something.
Yeah, that only really we know about.
Yeah. And then you go back and then you cut your loot. Maybe you even give it to another guy who makes the unobtainium to unobtainium special, which then can be used for something else.
Yeah.
This is what, because and having it hands on, not the as much as I like games like WoW. I mean, I played that game for far too long. Is I'm a bit fed up with this click and wait part when it comes to that. I don't want to click and then see my character doing shit. I that's what I like about mining. What keeps me in mining is that I actually, operate the mining laser. I do this. And even
Quams,
the hauling,
we can
even
use you in this game called Eco if you really like to mine. No, I'm just kidding. We have a mining problem.
You have a mining problem. Yeah, I have to be honest. I have not that much time for gaming at the moment. But I look. It came up a lot, so I will have a look into that one. Maybe it's something I can do.
Next time we play, definitely consider playing. It's cool, and we can use miners because nobody wants to mine because it's way too involved.
Is that well? Yeah, I have a look. Do you stream it as well?
I did for the last 3 weeks.
I can't watch it during the week normally because I'm sitting around in Europe most of the time, and that's in the middle of my workday. Well, if you maybe let's see, I'm hanging around the US in the next weeks a bit, so
cool.
Especially even on the East Coast, so maybe I have a look in the mornings before I.
Check it out. But it's a weird thing, so we won't be playing it for a while, but.
Yeah, always looking. Yeah.
It's very cool game.
The only last thing I wanted to add to the Assistant Crafting is what you are poking on already a couple of times is the lack of a definition of an end game, and I seriously hope, I don't know how they solve it, I seriously hope that it won't be that item thingy as a lot of other games. You have to. There's a meta for whatever an arrow, and that there's one arrow build, and everybody works for that, and the parts to get it are coming out of crafting and doing end missions. Like always going into instances in other games. And if you don't have that strong influence, if it's more on skill, which sadly starts to lack a bit in the current iteration. The crafting is not that doesn't have that terrible impact as it had in other games.
Okay. And it should not have a bad impact on this game at all, just because of the general way they're doing their economy, right? It shouldn't have an impact whatsoever. So we'll have to see. It's hard. It's so hard because they're just not sharing a lot of that. And I understand why they may not be sharing a bit of it now. It's because they're not really sure. It's very far off. But it's fun for us to speculate and have a goofy conversation that doesn't mean anything necessarily. It's fun to talk about what we would like to see and how we would expect to see it.
I'm with you there. Sometimes speculation is fun. The only bad side is that CIG's track record at the moment when it comes to game loops is
non-existent.
lacking.
It's non-existent. There really isn't a game.
Yeah, you touched it again. Touched a couple of times today in the stream, and I always thought, man, I have the feeling they have so many artists who create really. I mean, the visuals of this game are beautiful. I mean,
sure. The world they're building this game in is unimaginably huge and beautiful and inspiring.
Yeah, but they lack game loop programming.
Yeah.
Sometimes I think maybe they didn't ramp up the team on time.
No, I think it's more that they want to build the box that we play with and then put the sand in it. And I think that's why I'm trying to remain patient, but it seems like to me until we have something like server meshing online and cleaned up, because obviously it'll be messy at first, then you start seeing them develop gameplay loops. Because what's the point of developing when you're going to have to redo it anyway? So the idea would be we finally have the framework of how you will engage with the world of Star Citizen. After that, they want to start saying, okay, now you can do this, now you can do that, now you can do this in this universe. they're going about it a weird way for sure, but building the universe that you play in and how you interact with it first, and then making it more deep and enjoyable.
Yeah, it's a lot of an outside-in way to build something.
Yeah,
It's like building a house and start painting a cardboard before you build the wall.
yeah.
But yeah, it's what it is, and
Can't
I
do
hope
anything
it
about
keep it. Yeah, and I hope they keep it interesting. So
Agreed.
now I just have to wait until they fix the current bug and I can actually look at it in my own, because for sure I'm one of the guys who lost impulse control and bought himself a C8X extension, and now don't work.
Yeah, they'll get it. I don't know what's going on
Yeah.
there exactly if they've shared it with you, but they'll figure that part out. I wouldn't stress too much about it.
No, I don't stress at all. To be
Yeah,
honest.
some
I
people
don't
are
stress at
really
all.
freaking out, but I think you just have to wait a few more days, I guess. I don't know, until they figure out what the problem is.
I could wait another month. It was really like, oh, look at that, and then they have it actually explicitly in one of the Spectrum topics. They say, oh, it doesn't work for that part. They say, well,
Yeah,
why not?
true.
No, I'm not. All right.
All right, Quams.
There's a lot of people after me.
Yeah, we got a few more. We'll talk to you soon, buddy. Thank you so much for the call.
Yeah. You're more than welcome.
Bye now.
Ciao, ciao.
All right, Blaze Monger's coming in. Hey, Blaze, how are you? Blaze Monger? Yeah,
Yes.
okay, you hear me. There he is.
Very good, thank you.
What's up, dude?
Yeah, I'm good. Yourself?
I'm well. So, what are your thoughts on this whole subject?
Yeah, so I've been listening to the other guests today, and there's a couple of things that I kind of already noted down. So I think one of the main things actually is that Star Citizen may be an MMO, but it is very different as an MMO when you compare it to the general picture of an MMO.
Okay.
Especially the sandbox types. I think mainly because there is a lot of control and design choices that are made through CIG that basically define how the game should evolve. But there's not really much room for player input in that regard, and that especially goes towards assets. So I think that's really important as a main difference, which kind of I think is one of the root causes why we don't have crafting yet. Because as you said, they probably have no real idea how to do it, while knowing that they probably should.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's why they're not discussing it, because they don't know how they want to do it. They don't even know how they want to have the ships fly.
Correct.
So how the hell are they going to figure this part out?
Yeah. So I think, I mean, as you know, and people in chat know, I've had a couple of years of experience in EVE. I'm currently quite heavily invested in that other MMO that's going to come over the next 2 years. And both of them have the opposite way of working, where the players are in full control.
Yeah.
In EVE, yes, you have preset blueprints that you work with. In Dual Universe, it's literally just the components, and you build things the way you want.
Yeah.
And that's very different. In as you mentioned, everything in Dual Universe has a design language, has a specification, has a story behind it. It's all based on the major conglomerates that work in the universe, and there is not really a lot of room to deviate from that, I think. So that's a problem that it's not really a problem, but like I said, it defines the way crafting would work. So I think that's, as I said, the big thing. Another thing, there's not enough players right now active in the game for crafting to be viable. Another thing, since there is no loss in the game following PvP, there's no real reason for players to build their own materials, build their own components, build their own ships.
Yeah.
And so there's no money sinks. There's no destruction. And economy works with, on one hand, PvP destroying and taking out of the economy. On the other hand, there is industry, there's crafting, as a result, feeding into an economy and providing the means for PvP to take it out on the other end. I mean, that's very rough, but I guess you understand what I mean by that.
Sure.
And that's missing completely. I mean, you have a fight, you lose your ship, you wake up, you walk downstairs, you press retrieve or claim, and your ship's back.
Yeah, it just appears out of nowhere.
So, yeah, and
very weird game.
That's a yes, but that's a very weird, because on one hand, for me personally, it takes away a lot of the shakes and a lot of the excitement.
Yes.
Anybody who's played EVE, who've lost a ship that you've worked and trained for months, you lose it, it's gone. You wake up at your home station in a new pod and your ship's gone. Everything
should have bought it with LTI, man. You should have bought it with LTI.
Well, I mean, there is insurance in EVE, but it's like a fraction. It's only for the whole cost, so there's no comparison. But you have to go earn your way, which is why in EVE there's a saying, you don't fly what you can't afford to lose.
Yep.
But that's different in Star Citizen is a different game in that regard. So that makes it different. What I think, if we go back to the old post that you had up there,
yep,
that kind of describes a sort of a mini SimCity mini game inside Star Citizen, where you have a community where you create entertainment to keep your workers happy. It's not really industry. It's a mini game in a game that they're describing. So I don't think that's going to work. And I think what's been touched on before, the only way I can see crafting work is as a means to modify or enhance existing components. You use materials to create gems, for a better word of it, or to create injection molds, whatever you want to call it, that you plug into your components to improve a certain characteristic. And by choosing the combination of components, you vary a specific characteristic of the module. That's something that I could see happen. That's also something that I could see a repair facility or repair room or whatever you want to call it, like you have on a character, used for. Because right now, as you mentioned, there's a repair room. So how are you going to repair? Just put it on the table and wave your magic wand or something? No.
Yep.
There needs to be something that you put in there that you combine with the module to make it work again. And that part is missing right now. So yeah, I think that's where this is going. Plus, I think there is an opportunity where they may indeed go with a franchise situation where you align with a big corporation, which gives you access to their blueprints, to their materials, which you then craft using the base materials that you can mine, that you can buy from the market. And then you feed that back into that corporation and you get paid for that.
Yeah.
So that's something that I could see happen, something like that.
Yeah, I agree.
And I think that the whole crafting thing mostly relates to the general revenue module for CIG, which is really not built for allowing people to do their own thing. So that makes it a bit tough. So it kind of goes back to your last week's session.
Yeah.
The subscription part, because if you do subscriptions, you create room for something like that, because you create room for time and user input that you don't have if the developer designs and basically sets the tone for everything that's available in game.
Yeah.
So I think that's an important thing. It will never be as deep as it is in EVE. That's just not possible. I mean, in EVE, you mine ore, you go to planets to basically build components from the ores and then build components from those components. You combine those with invention into higher tier modules that can be used to create blueprints, that can be used to create ships. Factions will give you special blueprints that you need special components for, that exploration will give you. There's nothing that complex in Star Citizen. It's just not there. In Star Citizen, there is nothing that caters to crafting in any deeper sense than basically what we just discussed.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's basically what it is. At best,
The
we
thing
might
is
see something.
Is people don't want
Yeah.
Eve. Most
Well,
people
it's-
don't want Eve,
well,
but we want
sure,
something.
and I understand that. Yeah. No, I understand. I'm just making a comparison. I'm not saying it should be Eve.
Some people
just
do,
saying that
obviously,
the
but
system
some
li-
people don't.
Yeah. But a system like that would not work in Star Citizen because it's a very different game. I don't see that ever working, nor do I see the need for that to work that way. So don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to sell Eve.
Yeah,
I'm just bringing it in a context of the game is built differently. The whole model of the game is different. What I think is possible, what was touched on earlier, is more a blueprint system as you see in Ark and in Atlas for things like medical, like food, like enhancing existing products, things like that. And then crafting yourself. I don't see that happen beyond maybe fuel, ammunition, doing repairs, things like that. It's just not there. I honestly don't expect any deep crafting more than basic stuff ever showing up in Star Citizen. That may be enough because of the fact that the game has a different mindset, a different outset. So,
what does the end game look like then?
I don't really think there is an end game because I believe that Star Citizen will evolve and keep evolving over time. Personally, if I'm very honest, I don't see the game ever coming to a point where it starts to be a released game. I think they will forever stay where they are because the way they're currently operating works for them.
That's a completely fair assessment. Yeah. As much as I hate for that to be a reality, it's a completely fair assessment.
It's facts, and it works for them. And while we are all bitching and complaining about it,
they're
once
piling
they get
up money.
But once they get past the point where they have to get new I mean, I get that they do the new ships currently. I've made some funny jokes about that with people that look, the Carrack's here now. Yeah. Let's see if they can do some gameplay. I think most of the people that were working on the Carrack have moved on to the next ship that's going to cost 500 US.
Yeah.
Because that is where the money is. And you've touched on this before. I think that will continue until Squadron 42 hits. Once Squadron 42 hits, we'll see assets for that game flow back into Star Citizen over time.
But didn't you know the Star Citizen lawsuit settled? So now they can finally just release Squadron 42 because it's been done the entire time, and the lawsuit was holding it up?
Sure.
I'm just memeing. That's like a common thread on the Reddit. It's so ridiculous.
I know, but no, I don't think it's entirely ridiculous because while Crytek brought their lawsuit in a really, I'm not gonna name it, but I was gonna name it, but never mind. They're not entirely wrong, to be very honest with you. So I think
they settled. We don't know how they did, and it's probably going to be an NDA anyway. I mean, so we'll never know.
Yeah, we'll never know. But in the end, I think they're not entirely wrong. This actually ties up into previous conversations that you've had, the Lumberyard story, everything. I think Crytek is going to get a little bit of something out of this, which was basically what they were after anyway. and CIG is now able to bring Squadron 42, and once that's done and that's running, they'll be able to dedicate people towards Star Citizen. At least that's what we're all hoping, I think, will happen. And whether it will, we don't know. So far, I mean, I've been in the game like more or less for real only recently. But the itch is there. I see so much in this game, and that's something. The potential and the possibilities are there, but it's not like Eve. It's not like Dual Universe, which I'm involved with. But it's a very different game, and I like both. I like what they're trying to do. I see where they want to go. Whether they'll get there,
it's just a
I don't
question.
know, but that's the same thing with you. Yeah, it's the same thing with other games that I'm involved with. Dual Universe being a primal one there. Will they get where they want to go?
Who knows?
I hope so.
Yeah,
but that's the same. That's for Star Citizen. I think the game has so much potential that if they even get to halfway of what they want to do, then it's a fantastic game and it will be great.
Sure.
It's not there yet, and we need to keep that in mind. But so far, I mean, I'm
Give
having
them time
fun with it, and exactly. And the money spent in the game is money well spent. It's worth my time, and for me, that's important.
Okay. Yeah. All right, Blaze. I'll see you in Dual Universe later this week.
Probably, yes. Okay.
All right, man.
Thank you.
Talk to you soon.
All right, man.
Bye now.
Yeah.
All right, so our next caller is Sagent BC3. Well, let me bring him in. Hey, Sagent, what's up, man? Sagent, are you on the line?
Hey,
there he is.
I forgot to remove the SBC at the end of my name.
Oh, that's all good.
I am. Why am I not?
I hear you. Are you hearing me through the stream and not through Discord?
For some reason in Discord. That's why I had that delay.
Okay.
1 second.
All right. Sagent, why don't I push you out and then we'll bring you in last? How's that sound?
Let me just try and fix this. Sorry about that.
All right, so he'll figure it out in a second, but we'll bring him in next. Silesky, are you there, buddy?
I am here.
Do you hear me in Discord or do you hear me on the stream only?
I hear you in Discord.
Perfect. So, how you doing, and what are your thoughts on the subject? We'll just bring in that guy last.
Yep, no worries. I'm good to start off with, and I hope you're good as well.
I am.
I've only got 4 areas to talk about with what's been talked about in the
4.
The
Let's
show.
go.
Yes, 4.
What do you got?
Okay, so starting off, engineering.
Yes.
So engineering was set to repair the ship. So I'm not going to be talking about crafting.
Okay.
It is a bit of crafting, but I think we should switch the words crafting with other things. Engineering will be repairing one. It also stated in engineering that you're going to be tuning things. So I think they're going to be going down that route of tuning. So with the tuning, they put across that it's going to be skill-based.
Gotcha.
And I personally think that it's not going to be a table of skills. It's going to be personal skills, like in-game, can you actually do this upgrade to tune it? For example, with mining, are you good at mining? Are you able to mine this rock?
Yeah, before blowing it up.
Easy?
Or something. Screwing it up.
For example, they give you a shield module. You put it on the table, you'll be able to open it up, you'll be able to tune it to how you want, or a screen comes up and you do some sliders or whatnot, or if they are going to do it really skill-based to the player, then you either weld a few things together or put a different component in there to bypass something, and whether you're skillful in yourself, as in like not in real life, but in the game, it determines on how well that shield module comes out. So it could either be it could start at class C and then move to like an A grade or an S grade or whatever like that. But it shouldn't be, I'm going to get a stone and a stick, put them together and make a spear sort of craft.
I don't want to see that. I think, but like when you talk about survival mechanics and crash landing on a planet, there has to be some level of it, in order to survive. But I don't know how it would work. I know it just shouldn't look like DayZ, where you're just making these weird hand motions and magically things happen. I think there has to be some small scale version of that. I feel like
the basis of like the basics of it should be, like you said, the consumables and the stuff you find on the planets, like fruit and stuff. That is ideal for, say, the mechanic for being a medic or something, or like, you know, being someone who heals someone, because that adds to that gameplay as a crafting mechanic. You'll be able to do your science and you'll be able to extract, I don't know, a venom from an animal, and that'll be able to cure paralysis or I don't know what. But that should be the basics of it. Anything else to do with crafting, like modules or guns, if they're going to do guns, they're going to have to go down the Tarkov route of you're going to be able to have to pull out the firing pin and change it with something else, the barrels and everything like that. And I don't believe that they're going to go that way. So with the skills, I think it's going to be player-based and not table-based, like in most games. I think that will also add a unique dynamic to the game where, for the economy-wise as well, say, for example, rather than building a full module, you buy from a company, and then your org can then be, it'll be known as the people who first tuned this item to be that good that it offers you a better shield system. And then people then come to you, and then the economy evolves around that sort of notoriety. But you get recognized for being like decent enough to tune things and sell them off that way. You could even go into, you buy shares in a company, and then they give you a better price for the modules, and then you can obviously tune them up and whatnot and sell them off for a price which is obviously going to profit to you. But the only way you get the shares is if you earn a certain amount of rep to open up the shares ability, which then there's no imbalance in the economy. You have to work towards it. So it's something to work towards, like a goal. I think the bases as well, which were touched on a few times by a few callers, they're not going to go, in my mind, as big as, say, Hurston. You can't just fly onto a planet and there's a massive building, and that's like, I don't know, like the test building sort of thing. They're obviously going to do little outposts where you get your land claim. It's a decent amount of Bexelite in that area, so that's where your refinery is going to be. Your pioneer is going to drop it down, build it or whatnot. You have to put materials into doing it to build like the metal casing for the outside and everything like that, and then move on from there. A fun way of probably introducing bases could be on Microtech. There's plenty of empty buildings with little landing pads. They could, if you get a decent reputation for that, you could probably buy or rent one of those places. That could be a fun opportunity, but that's obviously not crafting.
Well, you do some crafting in there. Maybe you can place certain
you can
stations
run
or
your
something.
Organization from there.
Yeah, maybe. That's
I
mean, we're all speculating, but that's speculating pretty heavy, I think.
Yeah. But to end, a few callers have said, or you've asked a few callers on the end game of.
I just think it requires crafting.
I don't think that they should place an end game. An end game allows a player to get to a certain point, and then there's no progress past it. So you'll find a lot of people, like, for example, with me, World of Warcraft, each expansion comes out, you grind to the last level, and then you get all the gear that you want, and then what?
That's not necessarily what I mean by endgame. It's just endgame would be for me interacting with the game in a way that keeps you coming back. And the initial steps, like in a lot of MMOs that I've played, endgame for me was PvPing. Endgame for me was working my way towards owning a shop in a certain town in Ultima Online. Endgame was, I don't know, running an organization, right? It's but for Star Citizen, the way I see it is you're going to keep playing, you're going to get all the ships in the world, and you're going to get bored unless you can consistently use them for a reason. And what would that reason be other than fighting over resources? And why would you fight over resources? For certain reasons. Basically crafting.
I guess it would be for crafting an economy gain.
Yeah. So not an end game like levels or anything like. It all stops here. You know, the storyline stops here. Not necessarily. The storyline should be played out by us. But how do you keep us engaged? I think crafting is a very important part of that.
Well, I suppose if they make it balanced enough to where I don't like the word blueprints. I don't like the word blueprints. I think they should leave it as open to the player as possible. So, for example, we figure out how to make something, or we figure out how to make something better. So then the community can grow from that aspect, rather than going, I'm going to go to Hurston and buy this blueprint, and everybody can do exactly the same. I think that's a little bit generic.
Okay.
And they could be unique in the fact where they could say, right, okay, we're bringing out an item where you can tune this up and it's down to use to find out how to do it. Because there's plenty of intelligent people who play the game currently, who can dump many of hours in and be like, well, this is how you make it, I don't know, 110% more efficient rather than the 100% efficiency. And then someone might come on and go, well, hang on, if you do this instead, you increase the percentage by 20%. And then there's the rolling ball of there's people who are just playing around with it and creating their own sort of blueprints, which they can probably sell off as information within game, or sell off as a service in game.
Sure.
In the tuning aspect.
How cool would it be to be known as a guy to go to for certain?
Exactly, things. With the ships as well. So you could sell a ship with like a Gladius, and it could have like the engines, the power management, and everything like that, all tuned. And it could be one of a kind, because you're the only person who knows how to tune a certain few modules to a certain percentage that has a gain. And you can sell that off to someone, to the highest bidder, or whichever way they're going to do it. Or your organization knows how to do it. And they've trained people to do exactly the same. I think the crafting behind the Star Citizen should be more down to the player base rather than the generic ways of MMOs.
Okay. Yeah, I agree. All right, Silesky. Yeah, man. I guess we'll let you go here. You made some really good points. Do you have anything else you want to
add? No, that's it. Thank you very much.
Perfect. Yeah, anytime, man. Anytime. You know you're always welcome. So, yeah, it's funny. I agree with everyone. And there's all little disagreements between each of us for all these little things, but I'm definitely overall agreeing with most of people's statements. All right, Sagent, you're here.
Right. Testing.
You're working. Hear you. I can hear you.
There we go.
Awesome.
Right. So basically, since everyone's pretty much said everything already, I was just going to go to a few little theory crafting points that I had.
Okay.
So the idea of the AMG thing, I think that's where research is going to be based on. Because you could tweak all the components and
it's a
stuff
cool
like
idea.
that. Yeah, it is. I really like that one. But with the being an industrial conglomerate or owning factory nodes and all of that, I think the way that's going to work is basically let's say we have RSI, Crusader, Hurston. They're big companies. They themselves compete with each other.
Yeah.
We will be, as the sort of the people in the game, the players in the game, we will be sort of building reputation with one or the other. Say I go with my massive org test chooses to go with Crusader.
Okay.
Crusader will give them contracts to make their components. They build and they own their factories, making everything for Crusader. Helping push the supply of Crusader stuff really, really high, bringing the price down. Everyone is buying that. RSI gets pissed off, starts putting out missions to take out Test's factory, to affect Test's supply chain, and doing stuff in that manner. And that's how I see the end game.
Yeah.
For me, that's where I could see it happening. The other thing with just crafting in general, I don't think they'll put crafting in the sense where I can craft a component and it will show up in my inventory for me to be able to use. One, because of the IP issue that you brought up.
Yeah.
But also it affects the economy in a sense where the quanta cannot control.
Oh, good point. It's not, things aren't moving where they should.
It's everything has to touch the economy. And if you don't do that, if you sort of are able to craft a component and have it in my inventory, at some point we're going to be able to give each other inventory items. So if I'm just giving you all the components you need, you never have to spend money, or everybody in my org now build their own ships, they never have to buy them. Then what's the point of the economy, this massively simulated economy that's supposed to control everything? The other thing is with the whole way of when you guys were talking about there's no money sink without crafting and losing stuff. I think the money sink is as we have it now: fueling, repairing, probably buying land claims, keeping land claims up, paying for NPCs.
Yeah.
Every time you build up, all that is going to build up a massive cost that you have to constantly be figuring out how to keep up. So I think it will be a balancing game in that aspect for trying to keep your UEC up and all that kind of stuff.
Sure. Yeah, I'm with you. I like the idea of how it breaks the way that they're building the economy. Makes sense.
Yeah. But there's still, even in that, there's still some bits of crafting. I think the crafting where you're taking all the little components and trying to build something up, that's only going to be in repair. I had I was reading while other people were talking. I was reading up the repair design document that they had, which is 2 years after the crafting document.
Okay.
And it seems more like crafting than any other part of the game.
Yeah.
where you're sort of choosing exactly which materials you put in what slots, what fuel you're using, and what conductivity, and then you have to clean up the surfaces and then build up the components you want to repair.
Okay.
And all that kind of stuff. So it's a lot more in depth.
It's been forever since I read that.
To be fair, I'll link it in chat now because it's the closest thing to crafting that everybody who was talking about crafting in detail is, because a repair you'll be using like a sort of station, but I think it'll be not like mining, but it'll be tactile as Star Citizen wants it to be.
Gotcha.
It's very, very, you choose what you want. You have to keep your 3D printer temperature at a certain optimal point and all sorts of stuff.
Mining, yeah.
So it's very in depth the way they plan on repairing. The other point was there's still a little bit of hope for the stupid DayZ crafting aspect because they just showed the shivs in prisons.
True.
So I think they might have a little bit of crafting, probably only in the prison aspect, because the prisons are outside of the economy. So that's the only real place they could put crafting an item into your inventory in.
Okay.
Because
For now, they
everything else-
mentioned that it would just be found there, but I can see that
Yeah.
being
Yeah.
a thing. But yeah,
And-
man,
and
it's been a while
again,
since I read this.
Yeah, it's
in depth.
really good. It's a lot better of a document than the actual crafting document.
Gotcha. Cool.
Yeah.
Awesome.
All right, yeah, that's my piece.
All right. Well, thank you, Sage, and be good, man. Thanks for coming on.
All right. Cheers.
Later. And we actually have one more caller. Byron actually went AFK because he was sitting by himself for too long, so I didn't know he was here. So I said Sajin was the last one, but Byron had been waiting. So Byron, how are you?
Yeah, I'm fine, thank you.
Welcome. I'm gonna turn you up a little bit. I'm just gonna get your name in the thing because you're just a little.
I'm okay, thank you. How are you?
I'm well. So, what are your thoughts on this? Do you agree with a lot of the people? Do you disagree with anything? Turned up here. You there?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with most of the people who've called in.
Okay.
I agree with the guy who was talking about the large scale
Like industry?
Oh, sorry. Yeah, industry. Yeah.
Okay.
Industry. Yeah.
And in what way?
Yeah, I agree. I agree with the industry guy because he was saying that a lot of it's going to be large scale. A lot of it's going to be large scale, and you're going to have like a factory manager,
Yeah.
who manages the factory for you. And you basically talk to your factory manager, and you arrange things through him.
And we'll describe it a little bit. So, how would you just like based on a screen, or
No, I think
it's
it'd
going to be
an
more
NPC.
tactile?
Yeah,
It
I
would be an
think it'd
NPC.
actually, for an NPC.
Okay. Interesting. And how would he do? And how would you manage him? Just pay him?
No, he'd have like a screen for his Moby Glass, and he'd have a screen for his Moby Glass, and you'd pay him.
Okay. That's pretty cool. Was there, I mean, I know you're coming on really late, so there's so many things that have been said, but what do you think about like crafting, like how I mentioned that crafting's, I feel really essential for keeping the game flowing at the end. As you've played for, let's say, a year, 6 months, you've been playing hours a day to keep
Well, I
you
think,
engaged with it. How do you feel?
Even if you've been playing for a year, you're still going to have essential things that you need every day.
Okay. That's a good point. Things like med pens, stuff like that.
And those everyday items are going to be things that I believe will be crafted at stations. So you might have a science station with a mini game, and the mini game allows you to create med pens.
What about like weapons and stuff and ammo?
Again, yeah, I mean, for weapons and ammo, you'd have your workbench. And a workbench would allow you to create small amounts of ammunition.
Mm-hmm. Okay, well,
Maybe grenades using chemicals.
okay.
And again, the science station would allow you to research the fruits and vegetables and meat and all that kind of stuff that you get from animals, and
Yeah, and turn it into something tangible.
yeah.
Because at the moment it's so basic that it's not super useful or...
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Okay. I I know, like, again, I'm coming at the end here. So is there anything that you want to add to anything else you've heard today? Anything else you want to add that's been different?
Well,
or you kind of
think
disagreeing
as
with some certain people?
kind of long-term listener,
Yeah.
very long-term backer, you can just kind of hear other people and you think, this guy's got it screwed down. He knows what he's talking about.
Yeah. Yeah, it's true. I think a lot of people understand what it's going to end up being or have some idea in their head. The only problem is that the only people that don't talk
sounded like an idiot.
No. It's okay. The only people that aren't communicating well enough is CIG about it, right? Like, I feel like we all have like a decent grasp of what we think will happen, and the people that we really need to hear from is them. And I hope that I don't expect it right now today, but I do expect it one day soon in the next year or so to start really hearing them talk about this subject in particular.
I really do think franchising is going to be the way forward, though, with the with the big industry level of things, because people like Castech Arms and people like
Hurston Dynamics.
Yeah, Hurston Dynamics, people like that. They're not going to just like give up their IP, their intellectual property.
I agree.
So I think
not easily, at
is
least,
going to be the way.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think it's going to be a big task to even get to that point, and we'll have to see. We will have to see, man. I've always done crafting.
I sound like even more of an idiot.
Nah, like, have you played like traditional MMOs with like normal crafting and all that?
Oh yeah, I've played them all.
Are you? Can you hear me in Discord, or are you hearing it on the stream?
I'm hearing it in both at the moment. That's the problem. It's getting confusing.
Okay. Mute the stream. There's a little button. Click it. If you hear me at the same time, just mute the stream and it'll be a lot better.
All right, yeah. I didn't think of that.
Yeah, there you go. So now it should be a lot easier to converse, right? So now we're not too many voices at the same time.
I won't make that mistake again if I call back.
No, it's all good, man. But now that we got that squared away, so like, you've played traditional MMOs. Did you do crafting typically when you played?
I've played every MMO since EverQuest, and I've been crafting.
Did you play UO?
I haven't played Ultima Online. That's the only one I think I missed.
What?
It was a bit too. I know. Curses on me.
Yes, big curses. I'm very disappointed in you, Byron. But yeah,
Dark Age of Camelot had one of the best and most in-depth crafting systems
I've heard
of any of the MMOs I've played, because you could also reclaim items if you made a mistake or an error. You could actually break the item back down for some of its raw materials.
Oh, that's cool. I've heard. Yeah, UO did that actually as well. I remember with armor crafting, like metals. But yeah, did you mostly take part in crafting? Is that what you expect to do in Star Citizen?
I did a lot of crafting, yeah, as I say, and got quite good at it in quite a lot of the games. But in Star Citizen, I expect it to be a lot more mini-game based for almost every crafting situation. I mean, they've already discussed the idea of having food manufacturing stations on your 890 jump and stuff like that, where you have to keep your punters happy with good food and good booze. So I expect that, there's going to be mini games associated with that. But I don't see why any ship out there can't have those same mini games associated with it to a certain degree.
Yeah.
I mean, you look at the mole, for example, there's clearly a food replicator on the mole that looks like it's only really good at doing chocolate pudding and vanilla pudding. And I think someone who's skilled ought to be able to do chocolate and vanilla pudding. Do you get what I'm saying?
I agree. Yeah.
And once you open up players' ability to actually trade and get a financial recompense for their work, everything is going to be available for sale or barter.
True. It's just so weird because, like, if we go back to I think it was the last caller that mentioned, or 2 callers ago, that mentioned if it works this way, we're separate from the quantum economy then. And then it kind of makes things a little bit weird.
I don't think we would be. I don't think we would be because
Okay.
there's always going to be things that you can sell to NPCs as well. And if
True.
you're selling to an NPC,
Then
you're
you're
actually
involved.
contributing in
Yeah.
the quantum economy. And there's going to be things you're going to need to buy from the quantum economy in order to further create things that you're creating. So you're always going to be a part of it.
That's fair. I agree. Yeah. You can always be a part of it if you can involve the NPCs somehow. Makes a lot of sense.
Well, I mean, just as an example, say you need a couple of fruit from Hurston or whatever, and a couple of chemicals from another planet. You're not going to go to both planets if you're on a station and you've got the fruit with you. You're going to buy the chemicals off of the trade terminal at as cheap a price as you can get them, and then still try to make a profit off your end result goods.
Yeah. It's true.
And time is money.
It is, and there's a lot of wasted time in Star Citizen, right? So that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, man. With all that quantum travel. But all right, Byron, it's getting late. It's past
Thank
noon.
you for putting up with me.
Yeah, man. Hop on a little earlier. I'd love to have a longer conversation with you next time.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, man. Have a great one. Bye now. All right, guys. That is Answer the Call for this week. I think it was a lot of fun and good conversation. A lot of cool little... I think we all kind of agree that crafting is somewhat necessary, but in all different ways. And everyone had their little touch on it, and it was nice. Like, I think I had the little franchising idea, and other people had some other ideas that were pretty cool. I always crafted in games. That was always the style of gameplay that I enjoyed. So my bias may really be there, but I definitely think Star Citizen is such a unique game, so different that the idea of it being that MMO style crafting, go to your crafting bench and things just magically appear, is just not what we would expect from Star Citizen. So we will see over the coming years what it ends up being, but for now, we had a nice, fun conversation. So guys, leave a like on the video if you liked it. Comment below. Let me know what you guys think about anything that we discussed today, and then hit subscribe for more of these videos. And I will see you guys next week. I actually don't know what the topic will be next week just yet. I kind of want to figure it out by the end of the week, but maybe we'll be discussing 3.9-ish stuff. Who knows? It's getting close, so we'll have to see, right? We're almost in March. End of March is the time for 3.9, so we'll have to see. All right, guys, have a great one, and I'll see you guys next week.